Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Mending the Fence. This is the Tripolitans opinion podcast. We do this we're recording on a Tuesday, but it'll come out on Wednesday, I presume.
Yep, just like the last one.
I let Sam handle all of the technological stuff.
She's too busy to do it, so I have to.
Indeed. Well, this is my lovely co-host, Sam Stroud.
You know,
I'm
back.
Back and better than ever.
I'm back and on the attack.
Back and on the attack. All right.
That's what I'm saying for this week.
All right, and I'm Emma Daniel. I don't know, left wing.
Borderline socialist, commie, you know.
Listen, I'm definitely more centrist than some of the people that you wanted to talk about in this podcast. Let's be real about that.
Oh, of course, because those people are insane.
So, how about we go ahead and get started?
That's why we're here.
Indeed. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the speeches and the recent media coverage that former President Barack Obama has been getting. His most recent public appearance was at a speech at the University of Illinois. Which day was that? I think it was like
September 7th.
The 7th.
I don't think it was his most recent, but it was his most prominent.
I think
the media coverage.
The speech that I looked at, I think that it was on the 13th, but I can't really remember, honestly. It happened in Illinois, you know.
Yeah.
This is Alabama. We're going to be fine.
Yeah. I don't think he'll be making any stops here.
No, he won't. Let's be real here. So whenever I did not listen to the speech because I listen to other podcasts all the time, so I just read it instead. And Sam actually offered to record it.
It was a gaffe of mine. I offered to record the speech, not thinking that Obama himself had already said the speech and it was already recorded. So Emma got a good laugh out of it. I'm just trying to be a good Samaritan,
I still am.
You know.
It's like you know, if you want to save some water to make pasta in, just freeze it for later. You know.
All I'm saying is no good deed goes unpunished.
All right. Well,
anyway.
So whenever I read the speech that Obama had recently given, I was very I don't know. It was kind of interesting to see him again, you know.
That's one word for it, certainly.
Interesting. Yeah. It's sort of like almost out of place. Like, whoa, you're there all of a sudden. You know, how'd you get there? When did you get back?
Ignoring all those precedents that all those former presidents had set, about not criticizing the next president.
About not criticizing the next president. Well, you know, he can do whatever he wants.
He can do whatever he wants, free country.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants.
But should he?
So, the ultimate message that I got behind this, now, there are really two.
Okay.
The first one was vote, obviously. Go to the polls, have fun at the polls, go get yourself a free sticker, whatever. But obviously the other one is to slam Republicans and slam Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously.
Lots of that.
Obviously. I can't say that I don't disagree with a lot of the claims that he makes. There are some things that I do disagree with him about.
That's good.
So I did my fact checking.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, I was... The thing is, though, whenever I was reading the speech, I did not get the typical hopeful vibe that he always gave off. I got this sort of looming danger.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you think about it?
Oh, well, I thought the speech was mostly completely garbage.
I know. I knew you were going to say that.
I think 90% of what he said was ridiculous. I went through it this morning and highlighted stuff I thought was... I ignored the stuff that I moderately disagree with and just highlighted the stuff that I thought was just a downright lie or the dumbest thing he could have said. I had 15 quotes at the end of it.
All right, well,
now,
let's hope that we're going off
I
of the same
condensed it to, I think, 7 or 8.
Okay.
But still,
right.
There's a lot to tackle here.
Let's hear it.
So I think his thesis for, I don't know if maybe this will tell us if this is the same speech that you read, but his thesis was the politics of division, resentment, and paranoia has unfortunately found a home in the Republican Party.
That's possible, but honestly, I glanced at 2 different speeches and they kind of seem the same. I can totally get it.
Anyway, well, I think this is, yes, a lot of what he said has somewhat true, but 2 things. 1, there's the amount of truth that is in a statement is limited, and 2, the stuff he says about the Republican Party can be said for the Democrat Party as well. For instance, Democrats promote safe spaces. They have been known to suppress religious freedom, and they're actively calling for Trump's impeachment. If that doesn't describe division, resentment, and paranoia, I don't know what does. And we've seen 2 weeks ago a Republican Congress nominee was threatened by a protester with a knife. And I mean, we saw, like the baseball practice that could have turned into a massacre real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all left-wingers attacking Republican politicians. I don't see that happening on the other side. I don't see far right people attacking prominent left-wing figures.
So I'd probably agree with you there. You don't see it happen on the other side, and that's just how it is. What I say to that is there are crazy people on both sides of the aisle. There are crazy hair on fire people.
Sure, but to say that it's found a home in the Republican Party, I think is ridiculous.
No. Listen, I mean, I after listening to what you said, I think I did actually read a different speech. But
Fantastic.
It's okay. He probably covered the same
Texted
things.
her 2 days ago to read the speech, and she's like, "No, don't worry."
Oh, actually, this one did come out on the 7th. Okay, well, never mind. So, one thing that I did see is that he did. I'll go ahead and start with the things that I disagree with.
Sure, go
just
for
to
it.
make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a couple of things that he was not entirely honest about whether or not he really intended to do it or not. Still, he was saying that whenever I was president, I never completely attacked Fox News and da 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 da. And I actually did find something that said that he did technically exclude, or at least his administration did exclude Fox News from interviews, and they surveilled one of their reporters, like with wiretaps, following, that kind of thing. Obama actually called them, quote, ultimately destructive. Now, of course, I'm not about him saying one thing whenever in the past he's said another thing. I'm obviously not about that.
Right.
However, there were a lot of things, factually, that Obama did get right. One thing that I would really like to talk about is the economy. Such
Sure.
a fun subject.
Yep.
Fun subject.
Mm-hmm.
He said that jobs were doing better. Jobs are the highest whenever I was in administration, and yes, that is true. And he called it healthy growth, a healthy growth of steady jobs and steady economic influx, and that's not necessarily the case. There's still some growth, but it's only inching upwards, But the thing is, though, he made really good topics, but at the same time, I saw him doing the political grandstanding that a lot of people that are currently in office do. And I don't know, whenever you haven't seen him in such a long time, and you got to get used to it.
Well, to that, I would just point out that, sure, he may be right about the economy, but compared to what he and other Democrats were saying before Trump was elected, small growth is better than total economic ruin, which is what Obama tries to paint it as in his speech, where he talks about Republicans just giving tax breaks to millionaires, and he said how they were sticking it to the little guy. It's like, no, jobs are still growing, people are still making good wages.
People are still making good wages, but then you have families like mine and so many others that are hit very, very hard by the
Your families like mine who are getting $1,000 tax cut. So
I mean, but see, let's look at it this way. So you have two families, and one of them, both parents have a very good, steady paying job with you, right?
Yeah.
And my parents both have jobs, and they're both steady paying, but with all the bills that come in, everything else, health insurance, which is partially Obama's fault, then that kind of thing really bleeds us dry. And then the taxes don't help either. Along with you look at the tariffs that were made that are currently impacting the people that they were supposed to protect. Mm-hmm. You see that he mentioned rolling back all kinds of regulations for campaign finances, the environmental regulations that Obama set up. He basically took one look at the Republican Party and said, "Bitch, you ain't conservative."
And you have now violated the rules that I set forward 2 weeks ago about language. But that's fine.
Excuse me.
We will not. I will not reprimand you for that.
That was just a reprimand. You told me that there was light language allowed. That is light language.
That's okay. Whatever. So to my, I think 7. Do you have anything else significant you want to say before I go off? Because I have about 6 or 7 things.
I mean, I'll probably hit off of you whenever you go.
Yeah, you feel free to interject here.
Yeah, go
So
for it.
he calls out the Republicans for refusing to meet, much less consider, a qualified nominee for Supreme Court because he happened to be nominated by a Democratic president. Does this sound familiar to you in any way? Just anything
at the
at
moment,
all?
well, let me ask you this: was that nominee a possible sexual assaulter, though?
Okay, I don't want to go on this rabbit hole today because the accusations have just come out and there's a lot to debunk about them. But even before he was being accused, Democrats weren't meeting with him. Even before all this came out, they'd already pledged to not support him. So, sure, you can say that now. But 3 days ago, when nothing was said about it, Democrats are still all lining up to say, no, 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 we won't support him. Chuck Schumer said he'd oppose him with everything he had immediately. So, no, that's not a valid excuse to use, because even before he was accused, everyone was opposing him.
And that is true. That is true. And in our private conversations, I think I've told you, I don't know, that, you know, even though I didn't like the guy and I disagreed with probably literally all of his politics, he was still going to get confirmed, whether or not I liked it or not.
He'll still get confirmed, I think.
Realistically, I still think that he's going to get confirmed. I think that this is just going to throw a wrench into things.
Sure. I mean, it's all it's designed to do. The next thing he said that I took rather large beef with was, in a healthy democracy, there's some checks and balances on this kind of behavior, this kind of inconsistency. But right now, there's none. Yes, there is. The American people are the ultimate checks and balances. Just because the Democrat Party started acting against the interests of their constituents and got thrown out of office completely in all the branches of Congress and the White House doesn't mean there's no check on the Republican Party anymore. Ultimately, the American people will have the final say. And if Democrats want to be able to check them themselves, maybe they should gear their party toward more middle-class needs and agenda. Because what we've seen the last couple of years, I mean, 2016 is a perfect example. Hillary Clinton barely ever stopped by the Rust Belt, ever. I don't think she made a presidential campaign appearance there after the primaries. So the Democrat Party kind of totally wrote them off, just assumed they'd vote Democrat, because they always do, ignored them, and now they're in a position where they have no power, and now they're complaining about it.
Not always do. However, the Democrats did definitely get cocky in the last election. There were some reports that said that a lot of Democrats just didn't even go to vote because they just thought that they were going to win, and obviously that is just very, very not good.
I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of democracy, because when Obama says that this isn't how democracy works, this is exactly how democracy works. If you don't represent your constituents' needs and you go after what your own agenda is and you serve your party, you're not going to have control of Congress or the White House. So this is exactly how democracy works. And just because he doesn't like how it's turned doesn't mean it's not working.
So whenever it comes to, you know, the healthy democracy and that kind of thing, so especially with all the recent allegations that are coming out saying two-track presidency, or, you know, he's off of his rails, or there are two separate agendas, or three separate agendas.
By the very credible Trump official, Mr. Anonymous.
Yeah, but also Bob Woodward as well. So the thing is, in a healthy, I'm not going to say democracy, in a healthy American government, then there is a better system of, first of all, communication, and then checks and balances. Now, I don't think that checks and balances have necessarily been running amok, but communication is definitely for naught with this administration. But communication is absolutely necessary. I mean, if you don't communicate, then you get a crisis, such as the Homeland Security and Health and Human Services thing with the border. So
it's not a threat to democracy, though.
I wouldn't say a threat to democracy, but it sure throws a wrench in things. That is my...
All right.
Catchphrase.
Next point. He says, I'm here to tell you that you should still be concerned with our current course and should still want to see a restoration of honesty, decency, and lawfulness in our government. I think this is so ripe with irony. The fact that Obama is here telling us that Democrats are going to restore honesty, decency, and lawfulness. Honesty is not when you go out and say Benghazi was a result of a video rather than a coordinated terrorist attack. Decency is not when you have Maxine Waters bragging about harassing Trump officials and telling them they're not welcome and they're not wanted in this country. And lawfulness, sanctuary cities, anyone, Democrats will get rid of the law whenever they think that they need to.
So I have a point. Honesty, let's take a look at the administration and how many times it's been proven that he has lied. Decency, grab her by the P word, and I moved on her like a biatch, since that is language.
Oh, well, you've already said the word, so well, now you don't need...
Moved on her like a bitch, even though she was married. And a lot of incredibly sexist comments towards women and the whole, you know, shithole countries thing. And lawfulness as well. So even if we're not talking about Donald Trump here, how many people in his administration have been indicted, and how many people are going to jail? You know, this current administration doesn't seem to ring honesty and decency.
Obama's thesis in his speech was the politics of division, resentment, and paranoia has unfortunately found a home in the Republican Party. You are talking about a specific man with specific issues. You are not talking about an institutional party as a whole. And on to the comments you've said, sure, Trump is not the greatest guy. I don't think he's a good human being. I don't think he has a really good moral compass. But to say that Democrats are going to restore honesty, decency, lawfulness is ridiculous. They have in the past.
I'm not saying that Democrats are going to save anything. By no means. We're Democrats. Come on. But I'm saying that by no means are Republicans are heroes in capes here to save us. If you don't want to talk about Donald Trump, then let's talk about all the times that multiple senators and multiple congressmen have once again lied about things and have had it been proven that they were lying. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the lack of decency. How many public officials have been accused of sexual harassment in the Republican Party and in the Republican circles? I could say just as I could find just as many names on the Democrat side. I know. But
my point isn't that I'm not saying that these things aren't void in our current leadership. I'm saying that Democrats are not going to restore this, and I think it's bullcrap for Obama to say that we need to vote Democrat if we're going to just restore these things, because Democrats are no more moral than Republicans.
I'd somewhat agree with you there. However, personally, and this is just a matter of like deeper opinion than the opinions that are going. I personally think that we've seen Republican morality, and we've seen Republican honesty, and we've seen Republican decency. And I'm still young. I'd like to see some Democratic decency and some Democratic honesty.
We had 8 years of it.
We had 8 years of it, but you and I were also not in the job market. And by the way, fun fact.
Go ahead. What's your fun fact?
Blue wave coming up soon.
Yeah, I know. And we're going to see Trump get impeached.
No,
and
I disagree.
Maxine Waters would disagree with you.
Maxine Waters would disagree with me.
Al Green would disagree with you.
But actually, if you look at the numbers for what is projected to happen in the House and in the Senate, there is actually no way for Democrats to get enough seats to be able to impeach him without having to get Republican votes.
Doesn't matter. You think logic guides the Democrat Party. That's your first mistake.
Yeah, but you also think that Republicans are going to vote against their party lines.
I said impeachment. I didn't say they're going to throw him out of office. They're going to impeach him. Impeachment and throwing him out of office is not the same thing.
No, it's not. I'm not saying that either. But I'm saying that I don't think that any Republicans are going to go with impeaching him.
No, they won't. But, a House majority is also required to impeach president. So if you get the bare minimum of Democrats to do it, then you're fine. You don't need Republican votes. Anyway, next point. It shouldn't be Democratic or Republican to say that we don't threaten the freedom of press because they say things are published stories we don't like.
So
no one is threatening.
I actually debunked that just right now.
I know, but I had to go over it again because I want to again illustrate how nobody is threatening the freedom of the press. No matter how much CNN says that they're feeling attacked, they're not attacked.
Once again, I vehemently disagree. But what's new? Go on.
The next point, we have to restore our faith in democracy. This goes back to my first point about how democracy is in fact in zero danger. The only people who don't have faith are the people who lost. And if you want to talk about Russian interference, Obama knew about that in 2016 and didn't know anything about it because he didn't think it would matter. It's only an issue now because he's out of power and his party's out of power. So I can still remember when people called Donald Trump crazy for saying that, we need to secure our elections and make sure no one tampers with them. The moment Hillary Clinton lost, the narrative completely switched, and it's, our democracy is in danger, electoral college has been compromised, we need to completely revamp our democratic system. That's what he's saying right here, is that we've lost, honestly, have you lost faith in our democracy?
Not in our democracy, no.
Okay.
In our government officials, absolutely.
Sure.
But in our democracy, no.
Okay.
And I think that this whole, the more and more that I see it, it's a hot topic not only in Democratic circles but also with Republicans. Everybody loves to say that our democracy is going to crumble at any moment, and I'm sure that they've been saying that for hundreds of years.
Yep.
So of course not. It's not going to tear down democracy, but at the same time, he does have a point that in order to move this country forward, to actually solve problems and make people's lives better, we need a well-functioning government. And I do not believe that we have that right now. Like I said, there's a complete lack of communication. Even though Obama's and Trump's acceptance levels are sort of hovering around the same place, some polls have one higher than the other by a few percentage points. With either president, Americans haven't been happy in a long time. Mm-hmm. We can at least say that.
Sure.
And I would think that anybody who says that they have a lack of faith in democracy at this point is really just having already lost faith in the people who are supposed to lead that democracy, not in democracy itself.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know I keep saying Obama's right for this and this, and I know I said I basically call him a liar to start with. And the reason why is because he's putting all this on Republicans. He is putting nearly all these on Republicans, and he's lying because Democrats have had chances to fix this stuff, have had chances to restore honesty and lawfulness. They haven't done it. Democrats had unchecked power for quite a long time, from I think 2010 or 2008 to like 2010, and then they still kept the Senate till 2014. They had a lot of time to at least posture, at least act like they were trying to restore, credibility to the government. Instead, what they do is they get rid of filibuster rules so they can jam in their own federal district court nominees, and then cry foul when Republicans do it to the Supreme Court. So this whole thing where Democrats are going to come in and clean house and restore the government to like its proper place is bogus. And I think what really is invidious about this whole thing is that
somebody bought a dictionary and a thesaurus.
Indeed, yes. Is that so? Obama is saying this all like, "Hey, I'm being objective here." No, he's not.
No, of course he's not. Of course he's not.
But he keeps framing it like, "Oh, this isn't a Republican-Democrat. This isn't a Republican-Democrat issue." No, it very much is a Republican-Democrat issue. This whole thing where he's coming in and he's acting like I'm just calling it like I see it. No, he's not.
No.
He's advocating for Democrat policies.
No, of course he is.
He's advocating for people to vote Democrats.
Of course
so when he just says, even as a Democrat, I would vote for Democrats, even if I wasn't. That's bogus. It's no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, that is bogus. But the thing is, we have those two. We're also, spoiler alert, even though it's going to be there in like however many minutes, we're also going to be talking about the midterms. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, Obama and this speech in particular play into a lot of the ideas that I have about
he's just being a cheerleader for the Democrats in midterms.
Oh, he basically is. I mean, the thing is, all the Democrats know that he is absolutely the most attractive person to put as the face of the party at the moment.
He's the only face of the party at the moment.
He is the only face
Unless
of the
you want
party.
to put Ocasio-Cortez. Or
nobody's going to put her. Come on. She just proposed a $45 trillion bill. Do you think that
I know, isn't it crazy she won her primary? Like, come on, that's insane. Do you want to just pivot to primaries now? Since I've cleared all my points.
Let me just look through. If like I said, if you have anything else that you wanted to.
No, I think I've done my job.
I do remember actually what I wanted to talk about. Whenever it came to Obama. So the thing that, obviously, whenever I was reading this, it wasn't a whole lot of explicitly positive or explicitly negative reactions that I got. However, I did find this one point that he continued to make very, very interesting, in that he really seemed to sum up what millennials and what younger people are going through. He gives a little bit of a history lesson about it, bless him, but he harkens back to the time of a, quote, broad and deep middle class in the sense that if you worked hard, you could climb the ladder of success, end quote. And of course, when that wasn't whenever that was questioned by those who weren't allowed in the club, women and people of color, he mentions the struggles and the victories of civil and social rights. So he's basically telling us what we already know. We grew up in a world that's constantly surrounded by war. If it gets better, it's so in our faces that it's so very hard to see. It feels like, and it is happening, a lot of the things that we used to rely on, the things that we grew up relying on, are seeming to just fizzle away every single day. There's a terrifying number of student loans, and I don't think that he mentioned it in this particular speech, but I do know that it is something that he has.
He mentioned he wants that the Democrats are advocating for debt-free college.
Debt-free college?
Something like that.
Then that means that everybody would be able to have a degree. Mm-hmm. And if you wanted to, you could get a good job. And you wouldn't be in my position right now.
We don't have time to go over the fallacies of socialism. So.
Let me just look through a little bit more. But do you see what I mean though? Is that he did really appeal to the millennial ideology. Stupid people, as in you.
Millennials. Yeah, we're a pretty dumb group of people.
Yeah, we kind of are. We did the whole Tide Pod thing, didn't we? And there was one more thing that I mentioned, or that I saw.
Okay.
He says that neither party has a monopoly on wisdom. And I think that this is probably the most interesting point that he makes in the whole thing. You'd probably disagree, but what's new?
That's a funny... Emma Daniel is going to be here all night, folks.
But that was a rim shot if you couldn't hear. So he says that neither party has a monopoly on wisdom. And that was just to show that, both parties have been in the hot seat constantly. You look back and you see the histories of the injustices that I mentioned before. You look back and you see the bumbling Democrats not being able to do whatever it is you're talking about, establishing democracy or whatever. And you look now and you see the Republicans who are not, at least in my eyes, not doing everything that they're supposed to be doing. It shows that, everybody thinks that everybody thinks that this political game is a zero-sum game. Everybody thinks that it is so black and white all the time.
Well, because it is.
No, it's not. It's always far more complex. It is always more complex.
Not when it comes to who's representing your district. It's not.
I disagree with that. I very much disagree with that.
We'll have to table that discussion because I really want to make this a shorter episode, but that just isn't going to happen, it looks like.
Listen, you're the editor. You're supposed to have your magical editing powers and wiggle your fingers and then do things to make it shorter. It's fine.
Okay, well, I can edit all the uhs and ums that we make, but I can't cut down on conversation. As good as this, as substantive as our conversations.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tamper with them.
Oh, yeah, this is a full course meal right here.
So now we are going to go to primaries, and I had 3 big takeaways. I don't know if you numbered them or organized them in any way.
I did not. You go ahead and do your thing, and then I will piggyback off of you.
All right, so my first takeaway was overall, Democratic socialism is not a viable route for the Democrat Party to take outside of heavily liberal districts. Democratic socialist candidates lost in Michigan, Hawaii, and New York.
No, I absolutely agree with you.
The major exception would be Andrew Gillum. Gillum, I don't know.
Gillum.
Who won Florida's Democratic gubernatorial primary.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Florida might as well have just handed Ron DeSantis, who I'm not the biggest fan of, they might as well have handed him the governor's mansion. Because I don't see how a socialist is going to win in Florida.
So, personally, I just don't like Ron DeSantis very much because I just think he's not a great human being. But I completely agree with you that democratic socialism is not the way to go for the Democratic Party. It's a terrible way to brand your politics in this day and age,
Well, when you only have one way to brand it, you got to brand it that one way.
Not necessarily. The thing is, there's sort of like a middle ground. Social democracy, they so call it. I think it's still just being a Democrat, but whatever. You gotta put labels on everything these days. The thing is I would like to mention Ocasio-Cortez. Your favorite person.
My favorite person. I love to rip on her. She gives me hope. If she can get a congressional seat, anyone can get a congressional seat.
That's how I feel about Donald Trump being the president. So, I'm not a huge fan of hers. But she, like you said, democratic socialism is not very effective for the Democrats in places that are not very far left-leaning. However, the places that are sort of getting towards the left, not quite there, their representatives are still too moderate. I think that selling this sort of social democracy.
What do you mean when you say they're too moderate?
So what I have seen with a lot of interviews is that a lot of the electorate, whenever it comes to Democrats,
right,
a lot of the electorate is ready to move a little bit further left,
right,
to get away from more moderate and centrist ideals, go to that side. And so whereas Ocasio-Cortez is really, hammering this in deep, I don't think that in the rest of the country, everywhere else, that it's going to work at all. If Democrats want to get anywhere, they're not going to have this socialism thing isn't going to work for them.
I hope they keep trying though. I really do. I would love nothing more. My second point: Trump is a god in Republican politics. I think almost every single candidate he endorsed won their primary. The few Republicans who tried to distance themselves from Trump, such as Mark Sanford from South Carolina, lost their primaries. And our own Martha Roby, who criticized Trump late in his campaign, had to go into a runoff because of that mistake, quotation marks. I think this is really dangerous for the party. I'm writing about this in my column, again, I'm just going to keep plugging myself in every week.
Oh, God.
But the Republican Party has got to stop catering to Trump and needs to start catering toward the center and their more moderate Republican base.
You're exactly right.
Because, sure, Martha Roby, she can appeal to the hard right in Alabama because everyone's hard right in Alabama. Mm-hmm. A lot of people would say I'm a moderate compared to my family.
And then there's me.
Yep. But in places like Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, you have a lot of moderate Republicans who are not comfortable with Trump as a person. They're not comfortable with some of his policies. And when you have, I keep bringing this guy up, Ron DeSantis, but I I saw a political ad. He's teaching his baby to say "Make America Great Again." That
God.
I don't see how that's going to help him in the general, because if there's a moderate concern with, hey, I don't like all of Trump's policies, I don't think Trump's a good person, what are you going to do to kind of maintain your conservative positions but stay separate from him and be your own entity? If you have an ad where you're teaching your baby to repeat Trump's campaign slogan, that's not going to comfort anyone. It's not going to make anyone think, yeah, he'll stand up to Trump. So Republicans need to stop letting Trump decide their primary races, because the greatest strength the Republican Party has, and the weakest thing about the Democrat Party, is that there's no intellectual diversity within the Democrat Party, and there is tons of it in the Republican Party. And Republicans need to stop trying to silence and squash out anyone who they call a quote-unquote rhino.
Oh, rhino.
You've never heard of rhino? Republican in name only. It's a very common phrase among...
Oh, I did not know that.
Wow.
Listen, I mean, I did not go to my college Republicans meeting, so,
I learned this term when I was like second grade. Anyway, your Lindsey Graham types, your Jeff Flake
I know
types.
What you're talking about.
They need a place in the party, and they should not just be thrown out because they disagree with Trump. And I mean, this applies to Alabama a lot. I mean, I would love to see a candidate who isn't trying to say he was Trump before Trump. I mean, that would be like revolutionary in this state. But it's not going to happen, because there's 30% of the Republican base that loves Trump, and you're not going to win a primary without that. But I think this is why I think a blue wave is coming, is because the Republicans they've made no moves to try and appeal to the center. They are only trying to appeal to Trump's base, which I think is very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, similarly, like I said, Democrats are moving a little bit too far left. So, it seems that both sides are sort of pushing the edge, whenever they should be touting in the middle. But of course, it's never going to happen, because the divide, it's always going to be there. Now, I don't know how confident I am about this blue wave happening, because with Democrats, I don't ever feel it's a very good idea to be confident about anything. According to NBC, a lot of poll numbers in a lot of states that Donald Trump flipped from blue, they actually look good for the Democrats again.
Yeah, because the Republican candidates there are trying to appeal to Trump and not their constituents, which is what I said.
Yes. So, yeah, and you had a third point.
Yeah, my third point was this really has been the year of the woman. A record number of women ran the primary season, and 267 of them have won House nomination seats, including Troy's district, where two women will be facing off, Martha Roby and Tabitha Eisner.
Yes.
So,
I have met both of those women.
Election analysis, I forgot who did it, but basically if a Democrat woman was running against a Democrat man who was not an incumbent, the woman got a plus 10 margin, just like an automatic plus 10 advantage in the election.
I saw that too. I saw that too.
More evidence that society doesn't really need feminism anymore. But that's a topic for a different time.
Oh, listen, you're trying to make me hit you from across this table, aren't you?
I dodge it. Anyway.
Good luck with that.
So that was my third and final point.
So whenever I was looking at what was going on with the midterms, more questions came to my mind than anything. I've done a lot of research into how the Democrats are exactly trying to reframe themselves to make them appeal more to more voters. They don't have a clear message. They don't have a clear face. They don't have a clear idea.
They just hate Trump.
That's all they're going off of right now. They got to do more than that. I think that with all of this Obama media coverage, I think that this is where they're getting started. Like, okay, so we're gonna make you the face again. We're gonna get a message going. We're gonna get an idea of what people want. And I did notice that one phrase seemed to sort of keep coming up in Obama's speech, instead of good old rules, good new rules. Mm-hmm. I think that might be the direction that they're trying to rebrand themselves in, but obviously, I don't know. But it makes all of this really, really makes me wonder. So you mentioned it's the year of the women. Awesome. Woo, more women in government. But how will women actually vote? How will these women actually do?
They'll vote based on their opinions, what they think is right, just like men do. So this is why people who go like the discussion about abortion is going to change. No, it won't. You're going to have women who think it should be legal. You're going to have women who think it shouldn't be illegal. Nothing's going to change. That
is the case. It'll be interesting to look at, particularly in the different Democrat and Republican districts, to see how women vote for women in those districts.
Well, as Cicely Richards put it, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support women. So,
That's true. Looking at you, Trump people.
I wouldn't say that's true, but it's fine. Well, it's a very interesting time to see gender and politics colliding, as it always does.
It's about time that half of the nation got represented in the government, don't you think?
Again, we are talking about so many things that we just need a table for a later day. But,
this is just an all-over day today.
Mm-hmm,
this is fine. And you touched on Republicans. I was wondering about how Republicans would use Trump in their campaign if they were dumb enough to use him in their campaign in the first place.
I mean, they have used him as their central focal point, at least most of them. The ones who've won have made a big deal about Trump's endorsement. So, again, I think it's a bad thing, but we'll have to see come midterms.
And speaking of that, how will these results, how is all this going to shape the field and the agenda of the 2020 presidential hopefuls? And this is what Republicans are wondering too. Everything is leaning on this question of what's going to happen in 2 years.
Democrats are going to nominate a far left socialist who is
I don't know.
who is either going to be a female or a minority. That's my prediction, because a white man is no longer going to be the face of the Democrat Party. That much has been made clear with all these new brandings and trying to bring out faces for the party. No one being discussed as a white man. That's the only certain prediction I will give you about the Democrat candidate who wins in 2020.
I probably agree with you.
Will not be a white man.
I'm not a betting woman, but you'd probably win that bet. So yeah, everything is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. As it always is.
As it always is.
Did you come up with something for the partisan part this week?
Okay.
Before Emma goes into it, the partisan part is going to be a 2-minute segment each week where one of us will get to talk for 2 minutes and the other person will not get to respond to anything that person has said, and then the podcast ends, so there's no chance.
I responded to you last week, so you should respond a little bit at least. Make it fair for
it's
yourself.
fine. I wasn't in the partisan part last week. I was just trying to be the last guy to have a word, but you ruined that.
Okay.
So Emma's game this week. Emma, the floor is yours. Go ahead and ruin dozens of minds.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so let's talk about Brett Kavanaugh. So Alabama politics, if you don't know anything about me, Alabama politics is kind of my thing. I know it's super lame. I know it's super boring, but what can you do? There is actually an amendment coming forward on the next election in Alabama proposing a statewide ban on abortions. Now, here's the thing. In Texas, they already tried this. It was already deemed unconstitutional. I think they might have tried it in another state, but I don't remember, honestly. They've already increased a lot of regulations to try and close down clinics and everything, whether it be restricting the width of hallways to number of cots, to having certain kinds of medical equipment around. They've been trying to close down these places for years, even the private ones that you hate to send your tax dollars to. With Brett Kavanaugh coming into office, even if he's not the one that brings it up, even if it doesn't get brought up for 20 years, this case, Roe v. Wade, is ripe for judicial review. I'm sure that a lot of judges will be peering at it very hungrily very soon because it's been a long time since the ruling. And, now this issue is hitting close to home, at least for us, since this amendment is coming here. I'm sure that the state will vote it in. I'm sure that I think it'll get struck down. But the thing is, the Brett Kavanaugh hearings make this a lot more, I don't know, bring it to the forefront a little bit. I guess that's it.
All right, good. Only 90 seconds.
90 seconds. Look at that.
That wraps up for today. I apologize. I know a lot of y'all said you want it to be a shorter episode, but I just couldn't get Emma to stop talking. So, we're still on YouTube, trying to work on that, trying to get us to Blueberry, a proper podcast host website. But a certain editor, who I will not name, said I have to get a decent amount of viewers first before we can do that. Okay. So we're up to 50. We were up to 58 last time, so not bad.
What's the goal that we're supposed to have?
I don't know.
Let's call it 100.
100. All right. Well, so we're over halfway there already.
What
One
up?
week. So, just prove that you're listening to. I'm not going to give you a high five.
Please.
No, not right now. Not right now. Not going to happen.
Come on.
No, not right now.
Aw. Subscribe if you want him to high five me.
Sure, do that. And then just,
I like it.
if you don't want to listen to it, just mute the podcast and let it play. That way we get the analytics for it, okay? That's what I tell all my friends who don't care about politics.
Cheat the system.
Yep. That'll be all for this week. I'm sure there was something else I wanted to say. Oh, I do. Okay. So, talking about, I just want to get a theme for our podcast, like a musical intro, because I know just Emma or my voice is just jarring just to, show up.
I can come in all sultry like this. Hello, how are you doing?
I don't. That makes me feel weird.
This is NPR.
That's my thing. That's my joke. Anyway, so we are working on an intro. Hopefully we'll get that out sometime soon. Just make this a little more professional sounding because, every cool podcast has an intro theme.
That's true.
So if you have any, just random musical recordings that you just want to give
So
out.
you just want to shoot out
You
this
just
away.
want to shoot out, and we don't have to pay you anything at all.
And
That
we'll
would be
give you
fantastic.
credit. We'll give you credit.
We'll give you such good credit. You'll get a
the
shout
best
out.
credit.
Every episode, you'll get a shout out.
The best credit,
Yep.
every shout out,
Yep.
every episode, all the time.
That's
Anything you need, ever, always. Good night, everybody.
Yep.